I just don't think that what's his name, Will Howard. I actually don't think that he's a good quarterback. I think he's in a good system. Once
Mhm.
again, we know a guy like that in the NFL. Haha. But I think he's in a good system and he's just doing enough to kind of do what he needs to do. He has a good receiver, he has two running backs that can do whatever. And so his job is easy. He's just got to throw the small things, and then once in a while, it opens up the big explosive play down the middle.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Couch Potatoes, a special all college football edition. I know it's been a minute since we've covered the sport. What's going on? Does somebody not want to talk about it for a little bit? Need some time to grieve or something? We'll have to see. But let's get into it, shall we, buddy? Let's get into some news and some other kind of minor bowl games before we get into the playoff games themselves. I know we talked about it last time. Michael Vick, former NFL player, taking a head coaching job in college, and another one, Deshaun Jackson, former Eagles,
Ooh.
Commanders wide receiver, I believe, and yeah, used to tear up your Cowboys and a bunch of other teams, but now he's going to be the head coach at Delaware State. What you think about that?
I mean, huge. Congrats to him because oh man, Deshaun Jackson, he was a nightmare for any team to try to coach and to try to game plan against. The man could do it on punt returns, kick returns, freaking 70-yard bomb from Michael Vick. Like it didn't matter what it was. It could be a short freaking pass and he would turn it into like a freaking 80-yard touchdown. So I mean, this is huge. This just gives those players opportunity to learn from one of the most explosive players in the NFL, and it's exciting for him. I think that this is just a good opportunity for him to get into the head coach world, make a name for himself at a smaller college, obviously in a smaller program, and so we'll see what he can do. I think that that name could bring a lot of good talent there. I mean, it just is going to depend on, like you said, or like I said, it's going to be one of those things. We'll have to see what ends up happening. But I'm excited to see all these former players go in and coach these younger programs, make a name for themselves. We know a guy who already did that, Mr. Deion Primetime Sanders. And now look where he's at. And so I'm excited for it. I'm all for it.
Me too. Yeah, I think if anything, the name is going to draw some people,
Yep.
and you might see, and obviously he's dynamic as of a receiver as we've seen in recent memory, and so I think that he'll be able to help out boys like that and get them at least maybe some guy that has some talent here just needs a little bit more
Yeah.
work, and then spends a year or two at Delaware State and maybe goes on to bigger college and make a bigger
100%.
name for himself. So we'll have to see. All right, I think we highlighted this game a little bit when we found out the matchup, but the Reliquest Bowl, Alabama versus Michigan, and boy, I mean, I know because we were talking about it when the first round of the playoffs, where it looked like some teams didn't belong. Clemson, SMU getting the brakes beat off them. Like Bama should have been there. Bama should have been there. No, they should not have because they got their ass beat. I know Jalen Milrow had a tough game in this one. I think it was 3 or 4 turnovers. Couldn't get any offense going against Michigan, and they get the win 19-13. So Michigan ends their season on quite the little hot streak, taking down Ohio State and Alabama.
I mean, what's better than taking down two of the like biggest college names after having such a terrible season, having a
Mm-hmm.
unsuccessful season? You kind of turn it around with those games where you beat Michigan at the freaking rivalry week, and then you go in and beat Alabama 19-13, like you said. Just a good way for them to end the season because it was not looking good for them, and um, I'm all for it, and I think that Michigan deserves that win. Alabama has been confused all season, and then they made a big push late at the end, and they're like, "Oh, we deserve to be there." Hell no, you don't. Not anymore, like you said. So, huge props to the Michigan program to be able to keep letting us dog on the Alabama program. So, road tide, not happening.
Not anymore, man. And speaking of being confused out there, not knowing what the hell they're doing, let's talk about the Colorado Buffaloes. They had their Alamo Bowl game against BYU, and I think a lot of people,
Oof.
including myself, I'll even admit it, were picking Colorado to win this one. Didn't think that the BYU offense could keep up. Boy, that was the most wrong thought I've probably ever had, man. BYU from the get go just absolutely dog walks Colorado. Colorado doesn't look like they belong at all. They were leading 20-0 at half in this game. And I think I saw a stat like they on the first run of the game, BYU had 6 rushing yards. And that was more than the entire Colorado team. They had like 2 rushing yards the entire game. I mean, we shall see. But boy, shout out them for competing in that bowl game. We had Shador Sanders, Travis Hunter, all the starters and everything. But I don't know, man. That did not look good, and that scares me for guys like Shador Sanders. He did okay at 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but just constantly getting sacked or throwing the turnovers and everything. Like it was a bad look for Colorado, and I don't know. I know he'll still get hype. He'll still be a top draft pick, but that kind of worries me a little bit about Shador. I still think Travis is going to be a dog, though.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing to take away from this is BYU was mad at the way they finished their season because of
Hmm.
the hot streak that they had, and they took it all out on those Colorado team. And I
Yeah.
just think that the Colorado did not care enough. I think that they had the hype that we all thought that they were going to win and walk over BYU because they have such a high explosive offense, but only getting 14 and getting beat by 20 plus points. Ew. Really, no, man, that's not
Yeah.
good. That's not a good look for any program. But it was awesome to see that like Dion and the whole team not sit a single starter. It's always frustrating when you have these players that work so hard and they don't play the bowl games because they're so
Hmm.
afraid of getting injured and not being able to go to the draft. But I think that's a huge accomplishment to the program that Dion is building and the mentality and attitude he's building over there. So that's huge. But they did not execute to it at any point because they got executed. Like it was like children's. Oh, like I always said, Georgia was an NFL team. In this scenario, it was BYU that was an NFL team, and Colorado looked like a maybe D3 team, maybe a JUCO team. So realistically, I think this is just a good win for BYU to finish out their strong season that they had that nobody thought they were gonna have. Right. So big ups to them. And then Colorado, figure your shiz out.
Yeah, that was definitely a tough way to end the season for them. And yeah, strong way to finish it out, make a statement for BYU. Looked like all of their boys played as well. So awesome to
Yep.
see for them there. And another news, hate to say it. No, you know him, and Utah fans have been big fans of him. He's been a Utah boy through and through, and I thought he was going to stay, but Keanu Tanuvasa, he transfers to BYU.
Yeah.
So wow, yeah, BYU's definitely made a name for themselves clearly, and looking like the powerhouse in Utah right now. So we got to find a way to come back. That sucks. I thought that he'd stay a Utah boy, but he's gonna be a Cougar now.
Yeah, man, that's a huge loss for you guys. I remember when I first saw this news. Well, he I first saw that he kind of wrote the letter about it, and he said he's a Utah boy through and through. And then I remember I sent it to Derek, and he was like, "Oh, that's a huge loss." And I remember you said that's a huge loss, and I'm sure
Hmm.
everybody feels that way. But BYU just got a star in the making, man. I met this guy at the barbershop. Shout out to Aton, that's our barber actually. And so um and we kind of just connected. I was like, bro, let me pay for your cut.
You
I'm
trying to
trying to
get a
get
little?
this cashed in later on, dog. Nah, just playing. But like the guy was just so genuine, like super nice guy. He's like, no, I don't need you to pay for it. I'm like, bro, you're a local hero, man. Let me, and he just kept pushing me away, and then it ended up we both like put our cards on there, and mine actually ended up going through. But
Nice,
like, just a
nice.
very genuine guy. He's not there to take advantage of people because of the name he has, and Yeah, I mean, just very, very nice guy, very genuine. Is all about where he's playing, and I think he just had really good connections at BYU. And
Mhm.
I know he just got engaged too, so congrats to him. That's huge, and I think that BYU just really, really stole this one from you guys, and he's gonna be huge for them, especially when you guys play them again. And
Yeah.
man, imagine lining up against him when he knows how you guys play, and he's such a great player. I could definitely see him going to the NFL. But Utes, I don't know what you did,
Yeah, it's gonna
but
be a different season, man. I think Junior Tafuna, he graduated and he's got no more eligibility left. And then
yeah,
Simote Peppa, he transferred to Washington, and now Tony Vasas in BYU. So we lost our entire defensive
what are
line,
y'all
pretty much.
doing?
So maybe we're bringing in some new people, new regime. We definitely need a fresh start. So we'll have to see what happens there. But let's move along. Let's finish out the news segment here. Couple cool things. Cam Ward, so he ended up breaking the all-time touchdown record in this bowl game. I think he
Huge.
only ended up playing the first half, and then he sat the second half. A lot of people are kind of saying some shit about that, but obviously he's gonna potentially be the number one pick in the draft this next year. So at least, I mean, he showed up for a half, broke the record, whatever, and did his thing for the Miami Hurricanes. But then in the second half, they lose and end up losing to Iowa State 42-41 in the Pop Tart Bowl. So, the Pop Tart Bowl is always going to deliver. We love the mascot and everything. But yeah, what do you think about Cam Ward? Do you think he will be the number one pick? And this game overall,
I think it just who has the number one pick again?
Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee, right? Yeah, I could definitely see him going number one because of the need that the Titans do need. I love to see Miami lose just because we all know this is one last time, but he didn't go visit his grandma. So Mr. Mario Cristobal, I think that he definitely turned that whole program around. Huge, huge congrats to them for their season they have. Unfortunately, I know what it feels like to come real short. So then there's nothing to brag about because we'll get to it later. But yeah,
Yeah.
anyways, so I think that he'll definitely be the number one pick. I think that he definitely showed out that this was his season. He was coming out season, and the numbers he was able to put up were video game like stats, and so it's just another reason why he could be a franchise quarterback that can turn around a whole franchise, which the Titans need since they kind of played with Mr. Mariota, another Ducks boy. So huge,
Yeah.
huge for them, huge for him, and good season, and then kind of a sad way to end it.
Yeah. And I know you'd be worried, like, what's Miami going to do at quarterback now? I know you specifically would be so worried about those Hurricanes because you love them so much. Well, don't worry
Ah,
anymore, Feisty, because Carson Beck transfers down to
imagine
Miami.
that.
Apparently, his girl already goes to school there. So, yeah, he's all happy to be down there. He transferred real quick. We'll talk about Georgia here in a second, but obviously, we knew he'd be out for the season. Now he's down to Miami, gonna make reportedly double what Cam Ward made in NIL. He's gonna be. It's been reported about 3 million. I've heard 4 million from people, but Miami paid a pretty penny for him, and they're gonna continue at least with one high name in at the quarterback position. See if they can keep their success rolling.
Yeah, so actually, I was talking to this with our boy Brian,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Baby Boo Howard, and I told him, dude, can you believe that? But he kind of made a good point because actually Carson Peck actually graduated, and so if you're a graduate student, you actually don't have he has one more year of eligibility, and so he had to actually transfer to a
Oh
school
yeah.
because you couldn't really play in for the Bulldogs. So I mean, it's
Huh.
kind of one of those things that it was like forced his hand, but he was like, if I'm gonna go play somewhere, might as well go play for a losing team because I'm a loser. Ah, just kidding. But realistically, I think it said that he was getting paid $4 million, bro. Imagine getting paid. Oh man, one of these days we'll have to do a segment on NIL deals. H NIL deals, as I
No
always
H.
say it. Yeah, I don't know why I say it, but NIL deals because that's huge, man, and they just that's a good transfer for them. At least they'll have 1 year with him at least, or with him, and good for him to kind of stay in because then next year it makes him a prominent number one pick overall. But yeah, I don't know a whole lot to say because I hate Miami. I mean, I love Miami.
Well, we don't have to say too much more. Let's just finish it off with the most surprising news I've heard in college football in quite some time. Nick Saban is inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. Obviously, you're kidding. Quickest induction I think I've ever seen. Obviously, the GOAT in college football. So, no surprises here. Congrats to Nick Saban being officially immortalized and, yeah, continuing to do so. He probably will be inducted into the Hall of Fame as a TV personality as well because he's killing it on game day. But, yeah, congrats to Nick Saban.
Yeah, I mean, he just has such a great knowledge, man, and he knows the game very well, and that was quick because of what he's been able to do in the college football world. And like you said, now he's even more entertaining in the TV world, and he'll definitely be inducted in that as well. But I love it. Good, quick. No, nobody else would really argue against it. But yeah, congrats, Nick, because you do really deserve it. And thanks for making us all hate Alabama. Now, I guess Oregon, as Mr. Jacobs always says, Oregon's the
Yeah.
new Alabama, baby.
Yep.
Except we're not.
Good way to segue. Let's talk about it. Let's get into the playoffs. The Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. Oregon, Ohio State rematch. We talked about this. Disappointed that this was a quarterfinal matchup. Feel like it should have been semifinal, maybe national championship, but maybe it was good that it was a quarterfinal matchup. I see you turn around the hat. You get a little
Yeah.
shade over here. Because boy, this game was over before it started, man. Let's just say it. Ohio State absolutely beats the dog shit out of Oregon. I think they scored a touchdown like less than a minute into the game. Jeremiah Smith was doing his thing, and just it was nonstop. 34-0. They were up at one point before the Ducks finally got a touchdown right before the half. Man, what the hell did Ohio State figure out? What the hell happened to Oregon? What are your thoughts on how that first half started out? I know.
Yeah, man. I think we were definitely asleep. And, a lot of people were talking about this, and I couldn't wait to kind of really get into it. But, like, having 3.5 weeks off from your last game plays a big toll on you, especially when you're a college program. I'm not saying that that's an excuse that they should have, but
Hmm.
that is a long time to not be playing. And I feel like, in a way, I just kind of wish that we would have lost that freaking Big
Big Ten
Ten
championship.
championship
Yep.
because if we would have, I think we would have had an easier road. And I
Hmm.
said this from the start, man. I knew that Ohio State would get us, even though I picked Oregon. I just felt like it was going to be hard for us to do what we did, especially when we barely escaped because we figured out a way to manipulate a rule. And we were asleep the whole entire way. Like you said, right before halftime, we kind of started putting together a drive, and then second half, it just gets even worse. And I'm like,
Hmm.
dude, I think I stopped watching it in the third quarter after they went up. I think it was like 30, 30
It was
something. I think
30
they scored
or
a
maybe
40
even
goal.
40. Yeah.
And
It was
so I'm
40
like
at that point.
37 or 30 or 40. I don't remember what it was. It's all a blur now. I try to forget it.
Lots
Try
of
to
points.
try to
Lots of
like
points.
not even worry about it anymore. But now we have to talk about it. But realistic, I think Oregon just beat down themselves. They weren't ready. And I
Yeah.
know a lot of people were hyped. Shout out to our boy Devontae, who was like, "Oh, we're gonna kill him. We're gonna kill him, bro. We're gonna." This is my best impersonation of him. We're gonna kill him, bro. We're gonna kill him. Oh, just kidding. But like realistically, he was so excited, and I was like, "Bro, it's hard to beat a team twice in a season, let alone when it's high stakes like this." And something about Ohio State and that Rose just does very well for them. So I mean,
Know that all too well.
not us.
Mhm.
So just a
Yeah,
sad
man.
game overall. Jeremiah Smith, like you said, just was cooking our defense. Nobody was communicating. Nobody was talking. Our offense couldn't do anything. Dylan Gabriel looked lost out there.
He did.
And I just don't
Ohio
know
State
what
wasn't
happened,
giving them
man.
any time, dude. They were dominant and just, like it was 34 nothing. And a lot of that was their defense. Their defense was just as dominant,
Yeah,
stopping Oregon, who really hasn't been stopped since like the first couple weeks of the season when they were like struggling a little bit. You
right.
know what I mean? Like they've just
Yeah,
been matriculating down the field, like just been dicing up everybody. And yeah, when they played Ohio State, man, I know you loved it. I know we all loved it when Michigan beat them in the last game in the regular season, but
just
unfortunately,
fire,
I think that is exactly what Ohio State needed, man. They have
fire, bro.
turned it up because we talked
Yep.
about how they crushed Tennessee and then basically just did the same exact thing here with Oregon. And dude, shout out Jeremiah Smith, man. This guy is nuts. I know it wasn't fun to watch in this game for you, but 187
Insane.
yards, 7 receptions, 2 touchdowns in this game. True freshman, bro. True
Cook,
freshman. Like
cook.
he'd be the number one receiver if he could go in the NFL draft, but he literally can't. So this dude is just
Well, isn't he
amazing. And
17? Like
yeah,
technically he's
bro.
not even 18 yet, right?
I think so. He is a
Oh my
fucking
gosh.
crazy dog, man. So yeah, and got to shout out him. And then they got the two running backs, obviously Henderson and Judkins do their thing. And Will Howard, man, I'll shout out the McAfee show. We bring it up a lot. Watch it on here, but boy, they really love him and they keep talking about him because like nobody's talking about him, and I won't go that into it. But I do think Will Howard's a guy, and he has to, I think, declare for the draft. He's going to be um, out of eligibility, but I think
Yeah.
he is an NFL quarterback, and yeah, probably should be talked about a little higher than some of these guys. He might be more NFL ready than guys like Shador, and maybe I don't know, like Cam Ward. Cam Ward might be a little bit more, but even Quinn Ewers, stuff like that. Like he definitely looks like he belongs. I know he made that little mistake against Oregon at the end of the game, but ever since, man, he's just looked like a dog, and he's slicing and dicing it down there. So excited to
And
see
he
what the
just
future
is
holds
cooked.
for him.
Yeah, and he just cooked that whole when you have such a high power offense like they did with Jeremiah Smith and those dual running backs, bro. It's insane. Like, and I want to give props to uh Jordan James because he was cooking all season. He has his first 1,100 yard season or 1,000 yards plus
Hmm.
season. And then this game, it was like they couldn't move the
Nothing.
ball, even running, passing. It didn't matter what they did.
Nope.
That Ohio State just ate it, and it was a bullying. They just bullied Oregon, and oh man, it was such an embarrassment. I almost was like, bro, I kind of wish that we didn't even make it, but realistically, it just kind of happens. I feel like you get such a hype all throughout the season, and then you play that really good team. So, kind of questions: was our schedule even hard then?
Right.
Because you barely escape Ohio State, and then you beat all the teams that you were supposed to. Realistically, you had some scares at the beginning, and you still had some scares at the end. But yeah, it's just as unfortunate because I know that the next game would have even been tougher, even if we would have beat Ohio State somehow. But yeah, just a disappointing. The way we had a great season and to end it that way is such a disappointment. And I think Dan Lanning knows that, and that's going to lit a lot of fire under a lot of people.
Yep.
Realistically, I think we should still have all of our majority of our starters back. And I obviously will lose Mr. Dylan Gabriel, but it's just one of those things that you kind of have to regroup. And they've had a great recruiting class in 2025, and they have a great recruiting class for the 2026. So, like, realistically, they're still in a good spot, but this is just a embarrassment to get whooped like that on national TV after the season you have. And like we said, it's not a perfect bracket, but they need to figure out a way. And it's not an excuse because we got killed regardless. But
Yeah.
to not have a team have 3.5 weeks off and then finally come back and compete.
Yeah, and
So
it's gonna show a trend, man, and exactly what you said. Um, with like losing that Big Ten championship, and look what Penn State had, and we'll get into their road a little bit later here. But like, it really did the way that it was set up, man. It's just not really gonna work because the only it's good for obviously Boise State and Arizona State and
yeah,
then Clemson because they wouldn't make the playoffs if it weren't for the way it was set up. But
yeah,
then you're talking about Georgia and Oregon where they get these buys. But yeah, like you said, they end up They end up having to play Ohio State in the first round when, they I think you look at this matchup and they could have beat maybe any of these other teams. Maybe there's probably a couple of ones that they have a tough time, but Ohio State, everybody's arguing best roster. They paid all this money for it and stuff, all this talent.
20
So,
million.
but yeah, it's just we got to fix something. I still think that these teams should make the playoffs, like from the Big 12, from the ACC, and from the Mountain West, everything like that, if they can. But you just, I don't know. It's just
It's
the way it's
confusing a
set up.
little.
Obviously, is clearly showing some flaws, and this was
Yep.
maybe the biggest of the playoffs so far. So all right, let's move along to the next matchup. Georgia versus Notre Dame. We were split on this one. I had Georgia and you had Notre Dame. And yeah, like I said, Carson Beck was out for this game and out for the season. And man, we had kind of a crazy game. And the backup quarterback did not do as well as I thought he might have did. Man, Georgia struggled all game. Notre Dame's defense was on fire,
Yep.
and their offense did enough and was able to get the 23-10 win over Georgia. Man, you obviously believed in this Notre Dame team. What did you see that made you think that they would go and do this game? And did you think they'd kind of dominate as well as they did?
Dude, Marcus Freeman, that's who, man. That coach, I've given him his props, his flowers all season long because he's doing something differently in that program, and I love it. And I think that they deserve to be where they're at, obviously. And to beat a team like Georgia, holy crap, man, that's a huge accomplishment for them. Not alone the season that they were having, they had that one loss, and it almost feels like they needed that loss. That sorry
Mm-hmm.
lost in Ireland or wherever they were playing at. And so the Fighting Irish, man, continue to fight, and Georgia just didn't have the power to continue on, especially with Carson Peck being out. It just made him, I think, a little bit soft. I think that when I talked to a couple of people, they were like, "Yeah, but our backup is pretty good. Our backup is pretty good." But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes backups are backups for a reason. You don't get that first team reps all the time, and so I think that there was a little bit of chemistry issues, and so Notre Dame just took advantage of it, and they end up freaking doing what they need to do to keep rolling and keep fighting. The Fighting Irish
Yep.
keep
Yes,
fighting.
sir. And they started off the second half with a bang. They had a kickoff return touchdown that really lit Notre Dame's up. They all three phase, kind of a complete game, is really what Notre Dame
Yeah,
hung their hat on for this game. Their offense, not that crazy. Riley Leonard, he was, their leading rusher and passer. He had almost more rushing yards, 80, than he did passing, which was 90. So not like a crazy big game, but obviously he can make things work with his legs. He's a dog in that part of the field. And I saw something too. It was really cool where they were like faking a punt and then did a whole like team shift change or something like that. And then Georgia was left with
yeah,
like kind of panicking, didn't know what happened, and they got a penalty for a first down and stuff. So like talk about, like you said, Marcus Freeman. That's having your team prepared in all kinds of situations. So shout out Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I know we talked about it in the NFL episode. He ain't going nowhere. He ain't going to the Bears or anything. There's no chance. So all
yep,
right. So yes, there were 2 for 2 bye weeks losing, and we go 3 for 3 because nobody's really surprised about this one. But Boise State, Penn State. Boise State had that third seat, and man, Penn State just dominated really from the get go in this one. Boise State did what they could, but I think we said it was going to be a tough game for even Ashton Genty to try and break that record because I think he only had 130
something.
yards or something left to get it,
Yeah,
and he just couldn't get going because that defense was different. He got 104 yards in this one off of 30 carries, so they were trying to give him the ball, but those you just don't get those wide open lanes against a team like Penn State when versus like Las Vegas State or whoever they played in the championship or whatever. But
UNLV, I think it was. Yeah,
UNLV, there we go.
yeah.
Sorry, it's like blanking my mind for a second,
Nah.
but yeah, no, Penn State dominates this one, and yeah, Boise State really everybody kind of knew didn't have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it kind of shows, huge props to Boise State for the season they had, and the way Ashton Genty just carried them on their back. It really kind of showed in this game without him doing anything that their
Hmm.
offense is not good.
Yeah.
and they're not good. And so with Penn State having a better defense overall than any of the teams that they played, it kind of showed up real quick that just that whole offense was Ashton Genty, and so we both picked Penn State for a reason. We just knew Boise State's Cinderella story would come to an end. And huge, like I said, huge congrats to the season that they had. But no way you were going to beat Penn State, especially with Penn State being so mad that they lost in that championship round against the Oregon. And so they kind of had some firepower under them. And yeah, like I said, congrats to Ashton for the season he had. Congrats to the Boise for the season they had. But you know what? Penn State can handle business, baby.
Yeah, man, and like you said, if that's Oregon, if you guys lose that Big Ten championship, you thinking you can win the rematch against Boise State? I'm thinking so. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So, and even then, if you didn't drop all the way to 6, maybe you drop to 5 and play Arizona State, who was the 4th seed, but instead that was Texas. And I know we picked this game, and we got to maybe go back and clip ourselves because we both said I said Texas by a million, and you tripled down on my ass and said Texas by a trillion. And that was not true at all, man.
No.
This was the best game of the second round by far. I think it was surprising, and this was played just before the Rose Bowl too. And I remember oh man, this is kind of probably going to be a boring game. Can't wait for that Ohio State Oregon game later on today. And boy, was I wrong on both accounts because dude, it was good. I mean, it like I said, it started off bad. Texas got out to a 17-0 lead
Yep.
and just really looked like, Arizona State's just not going to be able to keep up with them. Texas is too talented all around. Um, but they did end up scoring, got to 24-8 at the start of the fourth quarter, and then our boy Scattaboo on fourth
Scatter.
and two,
Ooh.
man, throws a long. I was like a 50-yard touchdown, I want to say, from on a trick play. So that was pretty cool to see. And yeah, they marched their way back, man, to tie the game and everything, have a chance to win. And then I don't know if you remember seeing this, but that targeting call that was called and then picked up somehow.
Yeah.
Like that was clearly a targeting. How the hell do you if they didn't call it and then there was some question, okay, but you called it
Called it.
and you
Yeah.
spent all that time to say no when I think everybody even in the college football world, media, everybody knows that was a targeting call, man. That was bullshit in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those things that, like you said, we might have to clip ourselves because we both thought that Texas would run away with this game. Nah. Arizona State had different plans. There's a reason why they're their Big 12 champion. Um, I mean, they just did what they needed to do all season. They came out of nowhere and ended up having a great season. And yo, man, they put Texas to the freaking last minute everything.
Imagine
Um,
that, dude. I just want to say they were picked last in the Big 12 and they win the Big 12 and take Texas all the way. Like nobody, not a single soul that watches is a fan in media, anybody that's not in Arizona State's football program believed that this could happen.
yeah, no, 100%. They end up losing, like you said, in double overtime, realistically. But you wanted Arizona State to win. We all kind of wanted deep down. We knew that we had to pick Texas, but we wanted Arizona State to win because they deserve to be there, and they really did show that against a team that was probably one of the best, if not the best, overall team. But then after this game, I was like, ooh, I don't know if they are the best or even one of the best. So just kind of shows that what they were able to do this whole season was just keep fighting, and get through all adversaries to kind of get to where they were. And I'm excited for them next season to see what they're able to do because that this is a like I said, I don't know where, man. I We were looking
Yeah.
at BYU, we were looking at Iowa State or whatever, we were looking at Utah at one point at the beginning season, and so it's like,
Yep.
where did they come from, right?
Big 12 was
So,
flipped on its head pretty much, at least preseason predictions. But
yep.
yeah, man, Texas able to get this one, even with some scary situations. Like, I wanted to hear your thoughts on this and give my thoughts because it was weird. I don't know if you remember, but Steve Sarkisian, the head coach, he was sitting there talking to their kicker at the end of
Yeah,
their kicker had missed a field goal earlier that was a big time one. I think could have made it like two possessions. I want to say maybe a little bit out of reach, and he missed that one. And then he's just like, full on hands on shoulder pads, like helmet. You got like, and he's smiling, the kicker smiling and stuff. But it's just like this long, like 30-second like speech to your kicker. And I'm like, dude, he's gonna miss this. Like, that's what I said to the people I was watching it with. I'm like, he's gonna miss this. That you're just psyching him out. Like, you just tell him, hey,
let
if
him
anything,
think
if you're
about
gonna
it.
talk to him, just slap him on the helmet, be like, go get this or something like
Go
that.
get
But
him.
even
Yeah.
then, a lot of people have talked about like, I don't want to talk to my kicker at all. I don't want him to get in his head. Like, just go out there, do your thing, and that's it. Like, you don't want to psych him out a little bit more. So it's an interesting strategy from Steve Sarkisian there. I don't like
Yeah, I
it.
think he made him think more than he really needed to. As a kicker, you're honed in on your business, you're honed in on your this whole situation where you're within the moment. And so to have that conversation with your coach right before a super important kick, I think it might have psyched him out a little bit, and I think he kind of started thinking of how much weight was on his shoulder. And boy, was that weight heavy because they ended up pulling him all the way down and missing some important kicks. So
Hmm.
I just like you said, I just feel like you should have just gave him a big old good game, or or a good freaking go get him, like
Go
you
hit it.
said,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
not have to worry about it. But now you've put all this extra stuff on it, and he's just thinking about letting down the team. He's thinking about letting down his coach, and it makes a big difference. And yeah, it's never good. You should have just let him do his thing, let him go through his progressions and his warm ups, whatever he needed to do,
His routine.
and
Yeah.
then go get that shiz done. But nope.
Not this time. I agree with you. So, anyways, that sets up for a pretty good semifinal. So, Ohio State plays Texas with the way the bracket was set up, and then Notre Dame is going to play Penn State. So, let's get into Notre Dame Penn State. And this was an awesome game, man. Defensive first half. Penn State ended up with a 10-3 lead. And huge deal was Riley Leonard going down in this right at before the end of the first half,
Yeah.
and thinking he might have a concussion, but he's able to come back out, get back in the game, and offenses. That's when that train gets going. Is in the second half for both teams. Fucking Jeremiah Love, dude. He looks like a real deal. They're running back for Notre Dame. He put in just like an insane effort. It was like a 2 yard touchdown, but he went through like 4 or 5 people to get it and just kept going, dude. So that was awesome to see. Puts Notre Dame up 17-10 in this one. But then Penn State comes back with 2 touchdowns, ends up going up 24-17. And then after that, man, Notre Dame coming back. This was an insane hurdle. So they were talking about, I think Jeremiah Love was even questionable going in this game. He had a knee injury, he's wearing a brace the whole time. And
Yeah.
Love has had a few awesome hurdles this season. And they even asked him about it. You gonna do one of your patented hurdles or something? He's like, nah, can't do it with the knee. And he jumps over the dude like, oh my goodness. It was just a 2 yard run, but he jumped over like a full, like the dude was standing up and he's freaking hurdled him. So clearly in the moment instincts take over and he ends up doing it anyways. And then play right after that, dude. Jaden Greathouse, the wide receiver for Notre Dame. I think they said this was the longest pass play of Notre Dame season. It's just not really how they, kind of play. It's not their style, but ended up breaking down 2 Penn State defenders. One kind of lost his footing just all on his own, the guy that was guarding him, and then the safety that was, supposed to pick him up ends up getting crossed over by Greathouse, and he goes all the way to tie that game up. And then Penn State, they're able to stop Notre Dame after they get the ball back just outside of field goal range. So we have a chance for Penn State to get the win. But then right after that, Drew Aller throws a pick, gets Notre Dame right back into field goal range where their kicker able to hit a huge 51-yard field goal. Just 8 seconds left to go. After that, Penn State, sorry, has to try and get some crazy play to work. It doesn't. And Notre Dame advances to the National College Football Championship, baby. You believed in Notre Dame a lot longer than I think most fans do. What do you think about this performance and this game overall? It was banger, dude.
Something about those teams with green jerseys, man. The Fighting Irish just continue to fight, like I said, and this was a game where it just kind of came down to like smash mouth football, just low scoring game, not realistically just a super high scoring game and high offense, but defenses were really showing out here, and also to one of those games where you have to hit such a long field goal, it kind of shows the what the game was worth that whole time. And so I was happy with the result. I've been, like I said, I've been fighting with the Irish the whole entire way. Like I said, my and before I said it, Marcus Freeman just doing some crazy things for that program. He had the extension like we talked about, for 4 more years, and so if they can get this one done, that would be awesome to see, because then he has another 4 years to go do it again. But realistically, I think Penn State kind of were shooting themselves in the foot, especially with those last minute turnovers. And I mean, Penn State probably, you know, deserves to be there just because of how hard they worked and where they got this season. But you knew that they were just somehow coming up short. And I forgot their coach's name, but I feel really bad for him because he's such a good coach. And it just did not show at this game that it was
Franklin.
Franklin, yeah, and
Yeah.
it just showed in this game how emotional he was, and how much this meant to them. And like you said, it was a great game, great semifinals. You could have not asked for anything better. And now the Fighting Irish are going to be fighting for the national championship, babe. So let's
Yes,
continue
sir.
fighting.
Yep, they do. And another, before we get on to who they will be fighting in the national championship, just some news is Abdul Carter, the star pass rusher, the next number 11 for Penn State. I know you're a big fan of one of the last ones,
Yeah,
Micah Parsons, but that's just kind of one of those numbers, man. It always, you put it on and you turn into a superhuman. And this dude's a superhuman. Abdul Carter declares for the NFL draft after this loss. And a lot of people predicting him possibly number 4 to the New England Patriots. Obviously, you're going to have a couple QB needy teams ahead of them. And then, Travis Hunter's going to go somewhere in those first 3 picks, you think so. Number 4, pass rusher, Abdul Carter. I wouldn't be too mad. You know me, and you guys all know I've been looking for offensive linemen, but we'll see. He's definitely, got to be a top 5 pick, if not a top 10 for sure. So
for sure.
excited to see where he's going to go and what kind of NFL career he has. But let's get back into it. Ohio State, Texas. Now, this was some fireworks, man. I think we all expected this. And it was a really good game, man. We were tied 7-7 just before half. Before we talked about him earlier, Trayvon Henderson takes a 75-yard screen pass to the house to get the 14-7 lead. But Texas able to answer back in the second quarter, the second half, third quarter, tie up the game. And then Ohio State answers back right after that and gets a touchdown drive in the fourth quarter. So we're kind of going back and forth. And then Texas gets the ball back, and their offense is humming, man. I mean, just like they weren't stopped. I don't think they even had a third down until they got to the end of the end zone. I mean, they were just boom, boom, boom down the field. Whatever play they were calling, it was working. And but then it got a little interesting. We had a couple of PI calls on Ohio State, just
Yeah,
couldn't guard their receivers there in the end zone. So they got all the way down, first and goal. And I think the announcer is like, this is Ohio State. I don't know if you can just run up the middle on this defense. I know that they've, kind of let them all the way down here, but they are definitely a bend but don't break defense. And they got stuffed on the first play. So then Texas decides, let's try to go outside. They pitch the ball back about 8 yards, and Ohio State is ready for it, bro. And they go on, so they lose all of those 8 yards on second down. Third down, they throw an incomplete pass, I believe. And then obviously the crazy thing happens, but before we get into what does happen on fourth goal, let me set up the situation for you. It's like 2.5 minutes left. Texas has 2 timeouts, and then you have the 2-minute timeout, is what they call it in college. And I know I'm a conservative, Nelly, whatever you want to call me. We've talked about it on our football episodes, like the going for 2 and going for it
yeah,
on fourth down, all that stuff. But when you're just down and they're down 7 at this point. So you kick the field goal, you're only going to be down 4,
right,
and then you can get a touchdown on the next time if you can stop them, which you totally can. You have 3 chances to stop the clock.
right.
and it's 4th and 8. Now, if it's 4th and 2, 4th and 1,
Go
okay,
for
but
it.
4th and 8, why are we kicking that field goal? I mean, do you think they had to? Do you think they didn't have any confidence in stopping Ohio State? Why would you have made the same call, or do you agree with me, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that they just didn't have the confidence. I think that they gambled and it didn't turn out to be the best option for them. Especially where this game was just so close. It wasn't a huge Ohio State just blowing out teams.
Yeah.
Uh, but it was just a back and forth game, and I just felt like I don't think that they had the opportunity to really just think for a second. They probably should have just realistically taken the opportunity that was given them. But you know what happens in football? You kind of gamble and you don't take an opportunity, and the next thing you know, that the other team is scoring two, three touchdowns on your head. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think you just gotta hope. I mean, if it like you fucked up, it's 4th and 8. You gotta hope that you can stop them, and that defense has already stuffed you so bad. Get the free points, live to try and fight for another day, and maybe go win the game. I mean, rather than tie it, and you're gonna have to give the ball
well,
back to
and then
Ohio
it's
State
like, do you not
anyways.
have faith in your kicker? Like that's the other
Yeah,
part too. Like, do you not have faith in your kicker? Do you not have faith in your defense? Like, I know that the Ohio State got such a high power offense and such great weapons, but realistically, you have to understand that like it's a chance thing. You take the easy points, like you said, and they end up getting away with nothing.
yeah.
So
That nothing, and actually less than nothing, because on 4th and 8 they go for it, and big ass motherfucker Jack Sawyer, their linebacker for Ohio State, man, this guy's a genetic freak, dude. Like his neck is just bigger than my thigh. I think. Like, I mean, he is just massive, and he comes on 4th and goal, strip sack his former roommate at Ohio State, which
yeah,
was Quinn Ewers, and takes it all the way back 90 yards for the touchdown. So not only are you not down 7, not down 4, you just gave them another touchdown, made
yep,
it 28-14 Ohio State, and Texas had nothing to give after that. So Ohio State, after losing to Michigan, losing to Oregon earlier in the season, advances to the national championship. And I know that in Ohio State, they always say it doesn't matter, nothing matters unless you beat Michigan. But shit, if you lose to Michigan but you win the national championship, I think you can forget about that loss to your rival.
yeah. I think that this was such a huge disappointment from the Texas standpoint. I thought that they were the better team, to be honest with you, because they had two talented quarterback. They could switch up and do whatever they want. They had the crazy running back, the crazy wide receivers, who all are going to be, first round picks, if not second round picks. And it just wasn't enough. Ohio State just keeps continuing to find ways to have that explosive offense, and now their defense is showing up with games against Oregon, what they did to them, and then now against Texas. It's almost like it feels like they can't do anything wrong. Like we said at the beginning, that loss to Michigan just kind of lit a fire under them, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're on the poise to winning a championship, which I realistically think that they have a big chance at.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm still not picking them, so I don't know
we know
why, but
we know this about you. Before we get into our picks, I did want to talk about a couple more things, at least on the Texas side. One is that Quentin Ewers declared for the NFL draft. He might,
no
I
surprise.
think that, yeah, I think he had a chance to go back to Texas, but this one makes sense for him. I think they talked about, like, he talked about before this game, like he's probably definitely gonna declare for the draft, and I think he's got some NFL ready capabilities. He's raw. He's probably going to need some time, be a backup somewhere. I think would be really good for him, but I think eventually he can make a name for himself. And then while some things change, some things stay the same. Texas ended up extending head coach Steve Sarkisian to a new 7-year deal that's said to have come with a significant raise. And I know there were some rumblings about maybe him going to the NFL, but he
NFL,
is
yeah.
staying in Texas. So makes sense for them, and I think a good choice. I like Steve. I think this is a team that, these last 2 years they have been in it to try and, make a run for the national championship.
Yeah.
When you lose to Ohio State, I know it was 28-14, but really you took them all the way down. If you could have found a better way to, there's some play calls from Steve that have been a little questionable, but you switch out those two play calls or one play call here and there, switch it up, you might be looking at a national championship team in Texas. You know what I mean?
Well,
So I like
and the
this for
big
them.
thing too is that they realistically have such a good team either way for the next few years too. Now you look at Arch Manning taking over as the starting QB. I actually saw a thing that said that people were
Oh yeah,
offering
duh.
him.
I forgot about Arch Manning. Yeah, he's you still got Arch Manning there. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're gonna do something
Well,
for
and like
sure.
they were people were offering him 12 million a year to go switch over to schools and transfer from Texas. But the man's poised there and wants to stay there,
Yeah,
and I think that that's a good thing for him and good for Texas because now you still can do just as much damage as you've done the last couple of years to build this program, and it's a big thanks to Steve and then the people that are so invested in Texas. And they're looking like they can do something next year and the year after that, depending on how long Arch goes. But like they're not losing a beat. I think that you had a successful season. You lose to Ohio State, and not by like 50 points,
yeah,
but by 14 points. And so I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a good season, and I think Steve definitely deserves that contract. 7 years is a long time, and there were some teams that were looking at him in the NFL to try to get him, but now he's off the market, and Texas are committed to him because of the program he's built the last couple years. So good
yeah.
on him.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you kind of alluded to it, but let's get into it. So, we are recording this on the day of the national championship, Ohio State Notre Dame. So, we'll just add in our reactions after on this episode, but let's see what we do. Let's kind of maybe clip ourselves a little bit early right now. So, Ohio State is a 9-point favorite
Oh my
over Notre
gosh.
Dame. Total points for this game is 45 and a half. So, kind of a defensive game they're thinking. And I'll just say, I'll get into it. I think I'm going to go Ohio State here. I think they might end up just being a little bit too much for them. Notre Dame might cover in this one. I'm going to go 28-20 Ohio State for this game.
I mean, I think that like if I wasn't stupid, that I would pick Ohio State, but I don't know what it is about Ohio State. Just I don't feel like picking them, you know? I don't know why. I don't have anything against
This is
them
random like
realistically.
thing that's just stopping you. You don't know.
Nope,
Maybe it's
nothing.
touchdown Jesus and those Notre Dame Catholics. Maybe that's what it is.
That's what it is, bro. Fighting Irish continue to fight on, and I'm taking the Fighting Irish on this one. I'm taking Notre Dame to take this one. I believe in Marcus Freeman. I believe in that defense to come into play, and stop that fast paced Ohio State and get some freaking bodies on Mr. Jeremiah because he cooked us. And then to get bodies on the line to stop that dual running backs that they have. And I just don't think that what's his name, Will Howard. I actually don't think that he's a good quarterback. I think he's in a good system. Once
Mm-hmm.
again, we know a guy like that in the NFL. Haha. But I think he's in a good system and he's just doing enough to kind of do what he needs to do. He has a good receiver, he has two running backs that can do whatever. And so his job is easy. He's just got to throw the small things, and then once in a while, it opens up the big explosive play down the middle, like they did to Oregon. So I want to say Ohio State, but something about them, I'm just not going to Ohio State. So I'm picking the Irish, and I think that this is going to be a closer game. It'll probably be like a 28-24.
Yeah,
So I
you
think
like
it's
that
going to be
score.
a. I don't know about that, but no, I'm just kidding. No, I think that this is going to probably be a 31-28. I think
Yeah,
the Irish win by a field goal. They've
I
already done it with 41 yards. So
yeah,
the luck is on their side, baby.
I feel like I don't know. I feel like if Notre Dame is to win this game, they're gonna have to keep it low. Like I
Yeah,
feel like
I can see that.
if it may be 20-17 or 17-14, something like that's what I would, just because I feel like Notre Dame's got that defense for sure, and they got a running game, and Riley Leonard can run the ball, but they don't have the explosiveness that Ohio
Mm,
State has. You know,
yeah, to
no
keep up with them,
question.
maybe.
So I think that it's going to have to be a defensive game if they're going to, but you never know. We'll have to see. That's why we love the game. That's why we play the national championship, and all we can hope for is it's not like a Georgia TCU game a couple of years ago. It was like
Nobody wants
63 to
that.
7. Yeah. Let's just have ourselves a game. Let's have ourselves a national championship. So I can't wait, buddy. I know we're going to watch that tonight, and we'll just take a quick break and then add in our reactions on the other side. So we'll see you on the other side of this break.
Yes, sir.
And we're back, ready to get into this college football national championship game. Feisty, you were rolling with the Fighting Irish. I had Ohio State in this one, but it started out real well for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, man. Holy hell, was that a long drive. First drive of the game, like 10 plus minutes, I think, and Notre Dame finds a way to get in the end zone on that first drive. So they get up to an early 7-0 lead.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, yeah, let's just go through it, and then I will kind of
Yeah, because
reminisce
after
on.
that is exactly what Notre Dame fans were feeling. Because right after, boom, no, Ohio State blows up for 21 points in the second quarter. Notre Dame goes scoreless in that quarter. Lots of three and outs, and yeah, just couldn't get the ball moving. Jeremiah Smith was the one that got the first touchdown. We've been talking about him all the time. They ran a nice play with him out of the backfield, left him wide open. Notre Dame confused. Nobody had him. And then Sean Judkins got the second touchdown. Um, and then on the second, we get into the second half, he keeps it rolling, dude. Judkins just pops off, I think, on the second or third play of the half for a 70-yard run, and then gets into the end zone right after that. So that's his third touchdown of the game. They go, so I think at that point, what they scored 28 in a row, 28-7. I think they got a field goal. So they were up, I think, 31-7 at this point. And yeah, it was looking not good at all for Notre Dame. But we had some life. We had some life. They went for a fake punt. Didn't get it. It looked
Didn't
just
get
like
it.
that Mark Andrews drop in the NFL, where it looked like a good play. It was maybe not the best ball, but they snuck their backup quarterback out there. Could have caught it, could have got the first down, but
Yeah,
I think that was when they held him to a field goal after that. And then in the third quarter, they did find the end zone and a 2-point conversion after that. But down 16, I can't remember. It was fourth and something. I don't think it was fourth and goal, but they were within field goal range, and Marcus Freeman decided to kick the field goal. So you're already down 16. I think you're in the fourth quarter. There's like 9-10 minutes left.
yeah.
He ends up missing it anyways. So you're all for not anyways. But you should. You know me. I've said it many times on this podcast. I'm the conservative Nancy, whatever. But I would have said like you have to go for it there. That was a weird call.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the start of this game, the way that Notre Dame just put a punch through Ohio State to let them know that they're here and they're ready to compete, it started out really well for them, but then afterwards, it just went to just downward spiral and it never looked good for them. Jeremiah Smith is a dog, dude. And like just to know that he's just even a freshman is insane to me. And this Ohio State had a mission.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Day had a mission, and that was to keep his job. And he did whatever he needed to do to make sure that he got that done. So I don't think he's getting fired anytime soon now.
No.
And I just feel like Notre Dame just kind of beat themselves up this on this one a lot. Like you're talking about that just that fourth down. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, at this point, I think he's trying to get whatever he can to try to get something going for the offense and to actually feel like you guys are actually doing something. So I'm kind of iffy about it. I think he probably made the smart call by just getting something because you guys haven't scored anything since that first point, and they're 28 whatever, right? And so it's like I understand the call sad part is missing a field goal after making a tough call like that never looks good for anybody. So I think that that's like the saddest part. But there was a lot of players just on the Notre Dame on team. It's just it didn't feel like they were there after that first punch. Like they gave that first big punch, and then afterwards,
Yeah,
nothing else happened.
didn't have anything for him, but they did make a little run, even though like it kind of felt like Ohio State still had it. They made a run. We talked about this guy last time, Jaden Greathouse. He's going to be a guy. I
Yep.
mean, this Notre Dame passing attack isn't anything crazy usually, but Jaden Greathouse is the dude. He had 6 receptions, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns in this one. And yeah, got both of those touchdowns in the second half for Notre Dame, and they brought it within one score.
Yep.
And they actually had a chance to stop him too. It was 3rd and 11, and they said they were stacking the box. They're expecting the run, so they're leaving everybody one on one on the backside. Can't leave Jeremiah Smith one on one. You can, I mean, I don't care if they're gonna run the ball, like just double him anyways.
Yeah.
You'll suffer less, man. But on the biggest play of the game, Will Howard to Jeremiah Smith to ice the game, getting them that field goal, making it a 2 possession game. And yeah, Ohio State, your new national champions, baby. They
Does
spent
not.
the 20 million. They lost in Oregon. You have that. You beat the national champions. Not when it mattered, but you beat them. And Michigan, they lose that game to Michigan, and everybody, like you said, is ready for Ryan Day to be fired or his head or whatever, in
Yeah.
Ohio State. They got some crazy fans. And I mean, you see some fans that are like, still, they just won the national freaking championship, the first
Right.
12 team championship. So they had to go through more people. They had the longest season of all time, really, for college football, and beat every single person, dominated most of them. And some fans, well, still can't beat Michigan. When is that? That's all that matters. Like, get this guy out of here. It's ridiculous, dude. Ohio
Yeah, I
State
mean,
fans are something
if they were
else.
faced teams that were nobodies, I think that's when I would have said, okay, maybe it was a fluke. But the journey to where they were, losing to not just the um the rival, not just losing to Oregon. Like I think their biggest thing is since they lost to that game to Oregon, they had a mission and then afterwards it got really reactivated. I feel like after that rivalry lost against Michigan. Michigan
Oh
did
yeah.
what they needed to do and I was really excited. And then now looking back at it, I'm like, maybe it would have been nice to just have Michigan lose because maybe they would have gone complacent. They would have been comfortable and confident, and they would have not had as much of a firepower underneath them. And Ryan Day did the right thing, man. Like props to him to get his soldiers back up and get ready to fight and go through not just Oregon and not just Ohio State or Texas, but also a really good Notre Dame team who
Yeah.
may have had the easiest route to the championship, but still huge props to him and huge props to Marcus Freeman. I've said it many times. I'm a big fan of him. I think he's doing great things over at that program, and they're gonna continue to compete. And they put their name on the map now, right? Like we already knew who the Fire and Irish are, but now everybody knows who they are. And I
Hmm.
just think Ohio State just had the little edge on everything, and they just had the firepower, they had the big explosive plays, and I just think that this was just Ohio State's championship run, and of course, it's got to be Ohio State if it's not Alabama. So,
Yep. You know it, man. Hey, what a long season. It
yep,
started with the Utes being the number one projected Big 12 team and did not finish that way. Oregon was undefeated for so long and ended in heartbreaking fashion. BYU had a roller coaster of a season, and uh, regardless, man, it was an electric college football season. Man, it was always fun to watch. I liked that it was a little bit longer of a season. There's some people like because I guess like the ratings were down from last year, but there was also like the presidential inauguration on the same day. It's
yeah,
right in the middle of NFL playoffs where NFL kind of dominates. So like think
yep,
maybe if they got to figure out some scheduling thing. I don't know if they can move up the season because it would be super hot in some of those southern states especially, but like try to figure something out. And obviously, some things to do with that 12-team playoffs because we saw a lot of flaws in it this season, none bigger than
100%.
those teams that got the buys and won their conference championship supposed to get a reward and they end up getting fucked by it, But it was still electric. We still had so many good games and started with 12, counted down to one, and Ohio State is your national champion, man. So congrats to those Buckeyes. Thank you all for joining us on this crazy, crazy season, man. It was a long season, but
Yeah.
it's going to be a longer off season. We know how it is without football, man. And can't wait for August, September to roll around, go back to the games. It feels like months, and it has been months, but it feels like so long since the Utes have even played a game. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. But thank you guys for joining us for this college football season. We'll definitely make sure to keep you up to date with any big news, storylines, transfers, signings, anything like that. It's going to be an exciting season to start next year. I mean, we got Bill Belichick in college football. We'll see how that goes. So, yeah, thank you guys for joining us. This will be our last episode dropped for the college football season. So make sure to check it out. Don't miss it. And like up all the clips on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and Instagram, and yeah, episode on YouTube and Spotify. So till next time, we'll catch you next college football season on the couch. See ya.